Hello, everyone, and welcome back to AzureWell's monthly podcast. My name is HR Payne, and I'm always honored to spend this time with my good friend and one of my favorite voices in true restorative health, Dr. Alphonzo Monzo. Dr. Monzo joins us every month, and I really believe that his clinical perspective consistently helps us move beyond the system management that we are oftentimes faced with, and giving us true understanding, moving back toward how the body was truly designed to heal. Dr. Monzo just has a remarkable way of taking our complex bodies, our complex physiology, and make it into more practical understanding. And I think allowing us to reconnect with the deeper principles of foundational wellness. Dr. Monzo, welcome back. It's great to have you again this month, sir.
Oh, hello. Thanks for having me again.
Dr. Monzo, we are discussing something that quite literally holds us together, right? We are this complex machine with all these wires and all this physiology that and these structural components that if we didn't have healthy connective tissue, it would be like it's like the glue to holding us all together. If we didn't have the healthy connective tissue, we'd quite literally fall to pieces. and I think when you hear connective tissue, most people simply just think of joints or collagen, right? And it's just so much deeper than that. It includes the tendons and the ligaments and the fascia and the cartilage, and that really supports this entire structural framework. And so I think that the other component here is we don't think about it when we are feeling good, when we're feeling strong. And because when our connective tissue is healthy, we move better, we're more supple, we recover faster. But boy, when it's starting to break down, that's when the inflammatory processes build up, right? And you begin to feel it. So, Dr. Monzo, really, I think the first question here, what I would like to help set up help set up the foundation for today's conversation. Can you start just by walking us through what connective tissue really is and why it plays such a critical role in the overall health of the body?
Sure. So we're going to bring up our slides, and here we are. Healthy connective tissue, what holds us together. So I think that was a really interesting image I found there with all the different nutrients and vitamins and minerals. So we're going to kind of get into what is connective tissue here. But before, so when we were thinking about the topic for this month, we were going around, healthy bones, muscles, connective tissue, what should we hone in on? And in some other AzureWell podcasts, we covered more about bones and muscles and things like that. And I thought, you know what, we really should just focus on connective tissue. Clinically, working with a lot of people, it's not often that I find someone that doesn't have some type of weakness in the connective tissue. And I don't think we often think about that in the natural health world, or I don't think, the average person probably doesn't even think about their connective tissue much at all. It's kind of like, what is that? It kind of holds you together. What is that, and why is it important? But so the overview here for people to understand connective tissue and why it's important is obviously you have bones, muscle, and joints make up your musculoskeletal system. The bones give your body shape, protect the organs, and store minerals like calcium. While there's a whole lot more than just calcium needed to make bones, that's one of maybe the misnomers. There's all kinds of minerals that all work together for your body to make bone. So it's not just like throw calcium at it. And that's why we want to try to stay holistic and more whole food and give the body everything instead of isolated things. Uh, Many different joints in your body connect bones and allow you to move. The muscles help you control your movement in some of the body, such as digestion. Maybe people don't think about it, but a lot of your digestive organs, small intestine, large intestine, stomach, these are all muscles technically in the body, and they do their job, and they actually move, and as they move the food, and which eventually becomes your waste product, fecal matter, out of the body. But today we're going to focus on this connective tissue. So when we're talking about connective tissue, we're talking about your tendons, your ligaments, the fascia, the cartilage. That makes up the connective tissue. And what does it do? Well, it connects, supports, binds, and separates tissues and organs. Interesting concept there. Not only is it binding things and holding things together, but it actually separates too, because we don't want all the organs and tissues and stuff all getting like intertwined, or even there's not just scar tissue, but sometimes adhesions. We don't want adhesions. Sometimes, unfortunately, we get adhesions and stuff building up in connective tissue. And when that starts to happen, then you start getting restrictive movement. So you can see a lot of your connective tissue is actually is supposed to be quite pliable and flexible and able to move, because that's the idea of it. It's holding things together, but it's also has some give and go there. It has to have some movement. Otherwise, you'd just be stiff as a board. And maybe that's what some people feel like at home. They feel like they get out of bed and they can't move. That might be an indication that your connective tissue isn't as healthy as you think. And when that starts breaking down, man, it's a cascade. You think of the dominoes. You hit one domino and they all start going down. Well, you're going to start eventually having problems with your muscles and your bones and all kinds of things.
I just can't help but to notice you mentioned bones here several times. Mm-hmm. Is there a direct correlation between the health of the bones and the health of the connected tissue?
Yeah. There's a couple perspectives on that. One is a lot of the same nutrients you need for connective tissue, you need for bone. Mm. So it has some of the same building blocks. Another thing is that connective tissue helps to connect the bones and the muscles together. So we have tendons and we have ligaments. One combined helps attach muscles to muscles. One attaches muscles to bones. So when the connective tissue starts breaking down, then it's going to affect the bones negatively, because you need it to be attached for things to keep moving. And a third perspective actually is energetically. Energetically, a lot of the same energy systems in the body that control the connective tissue controls your bone. So they really kind of work interchangeably, although they are kind of separate systems in the body. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the actual topic of today. We're going to go through the 8 key pillars for healthy connective tissue. These are the 8 things you need. And this is going along with our new format for this year for the AzureWell podcast. So after each key pillar, we're going to show you what AzureWell supplements helps that particular key health idea. So the first one, actually all 8 of them are on the screen, but we're going to go through each one individually. We just wanted to list the 8 at the beginning. You got the collagen synthesis, very important. You got the antioxidant protection, the joint matrix support. There's hydration, movement and loading, anti-inflammatory lifestyle, sleep and hormones, And then, oops, my fault. I got a little trigger happy there. Nutrients for life was number 8 on the bottom. So now we're going to go right into number 1 and see, do you have anything you want to say yet before we hit the first one?
Let's tackle number 1 here, collagen synthesis.
Yeah, it feels like we talked about this once before. I don't remember when, but it was a key topic on one of our other podcasts, but very important here, collagen synthesis. So obviously a lot of connective tissue would be in the category of collagen. Collagen is the structural protein in tendons, ligaments, fascia, and cartilage. And what do you need for collagen? Well, one of the key vitamins is vitamin C. And of course, we're referring to whole food C, not the isolated ascorbic acid. So it's an essential cofactor for the enzymes that help stabilize the collagen fibers. So without enough C, then the collagen becomes structurally weak. Now, when we're looking at that, we also see there's amino acids too that play a part in this collagen synthesis. Glycine, proline, amylase. These amino acids are very important, and they're like little building blocks. If we take a little step back, amino acids are building blocks in the body, and they make up a lot of other materials in the body. So I think maybe a lot of people know, maybe they don't know. So we'll let you know. Most of the time, it's the amino acids that start building like your proteins and obviously collagen and a lot of other materials in your body. So a lot of people, when they need to build more protein, that's one thing they do is they get more amino acids in the diet, foods that are loaded with amino acids. And we have a good amount of amino acids in some of our and some of the AzureWell products. And so they're the building blocks. You have other things like bone broth, gelatin, collagen peptide supplements that are a practical source of amino acids. And so a lot of times when people see something like with the broth or the gelatin, it's like, what am I getting out of that? You don't really see a whole lot of vitamins or minerals necessarily on the label. It's like, what are you getting? You're getting the amino acids, the building blocks. And then that's going to work with your vitamin C. It's going to work with your copper and the zinc, the two key minerals that kind of have this integral function in the body. You don't want your zinc to get too high or you decrease your copper, but at the same time, you need a proper amount of zinc to copper. And they have a very dynamic dual, even electrically. One's more positive, one more negative. So you get this electrolysis and these pH balances and all these interesting factors with copper zinc balance in the body. And of course, you happen to need both of them for the collagen synthesis. So there are the key vitamins, minerals, and nutrients you need.
Yeah, I think the key pearl here that you're exemplifying is that it's not just about taking collagen or having collagen. You don't just simply take collagen. Your body must have the right cofactors and minerals and that metabolic environment to actually build strong, resilient tissue from the collagen.
Yes.
And, I'm a big proponent of hydrolyzed collagen that have those, because sometimes it's the body, when you have compromised digestion as you get older, of course, you just don't have quite the digestive capacity that you once had back in your vibrant 20s, right? And so to take bone broth and some of these different collagens, your body has to break it down. And so from a clinical standpoint, it could just sometimes be a little bit better of a shortcut to take some of these hydrolyzed amino acids, the hydrolyzed collagen, which is, it's more of a representation of its amino acid complex. But I'm gonna put a big but there, you miss out on all the cofactors and minerals that you get with the bone broth. as much as I love hydrolyzed collagen because it can clinically target, make no mistake, even our hydrolyzed collagen, it's an amino acid complex. And it's not really collagen. You know why? Because it doesn't have these critical cofactors, specifically speaking, vitamin C. Mm-hmm. So without the vitamin C, you can't really call it collagen, can you? It's got to be a matrix there. And so it reminds me, and as you're going through this, you were just naming all the particulars. I'm going to go back, and you were talking about vitamin C and copper and zinc and all these building blocks. These are your 90 essentials that you constantly talk about, Dr. Monzo. That is the whole reason we like to start with a foundational supplement, like the whole food multivitamin, right? Yeah. And because it delivers that profile to set the collagen up. So when you take collagen, this hydrolyzed collagen that we're talking about, your body can actually utilize it. So I think I just saw a huge pearl there in which you were talking about. I really wanted to just highlight the importance of everything around the word collagen, not just collagen. It doesn't just happen by itself here.
That's right. And that's why we always start with the 90 essential, because, those are something that 90 essential nutrients are something you always need. You're never going to stop needing those. So once you get on that and you stay on that, then you can start adding other things in to your regimen based on what you need. And if it happens to be connective tissue, well, now you can add in the pure collagen. If you're not sure you're getting enough whole food C from the whole food multi, there is a little bit in there. Obviously, it's not going to be as much as the whole food C complex, but then you can add the whole food C complex in there and the collagen, and now you have a really good package. Now, just a reminder for people, these are food-based supplements. That's why we call them whole food. So with the whole food multi right now, you're getting about 4 milligrams of copper. So you really don't necessarily need the core copper separate currently with the whole food. Now we've had other batches where the copper content was much lower, and that, it just depends on the food. And that's one of our major problems today. There's not a lot of copper in our foods. So sometimes when you look at the label, it will be less. And usually we will let you know on podcasts and stuff that, you might need to add in the core copper now because the amount of copper in the whole food is lower this time. And that kind of just comes with the territory of what we're doing. It's something most companies don't want to deal with. So most companies don't. And how they get around that is they put isolated synthetic vitamins or inorganic minerals into the product. And the label looks nice and clean, and it always stays the same.
It's the same, right?
That's not necessarily great for you. So this is a great place to start right here. The whole food multi, the whole food C complex, the core copper, and of course the pure collagen. All right, next is antioxidants. Well, man, what are antioxidants not good for? I think this is, besides the minerals and the 90 essential, antioxidants might be another one of those, I don't know what you want to call it, categories that almost always shows up in one of our podcasts because it's so important. We deal with so much oxidative stress and free radicals because of modern lifestyle. You need those antioxidants to get rid of all the oxidative damage in the body. And connective tissue is also vulnerable to oxidative damage from even things that we think are good. Exercise. Well, there's exercise and then there's working out. And if you work yourself out, you might need some more support for the connective tissue. Inflammation, aging, toxins, they build up in the body. And what gives us great antioxidant support Well, vitamin C, vitamin E have been well known for antioxidant support. And there you go again. Now we just mentioned a vitamin C, again, at least whole food. How important it was for the synthesis of collagen in the body, but it also is showing up as an antioxidant. So you can see how key this one nutrient is for connective tissue. It's going to serve multiple purposes here. So selenium also. Selenium helps support the body's ability to make glutathione. And glutathione is a master antioxidant and detoxer. Glutathione is so important, and it's probably one of those things. It's probably one of those nutrients that we see a lot of people low in. Glutathione can also have a lot to do with liver detox and how well your methylation pathways are working. And unfortunately, a lot of people have methylation issues. And if you have specific methylation issues with the genes, methylation genes, you might have a major difficulty making glutathione. I don't think that's a lifetime thing. I think that's a situation of epigenetics where we can get those genes activated and working again. But it's something to think about when we're looking at connective tissue. Why is my connective tissue not working well? Why is my muscle and my bones aching? Or why do I seem to be really stiff? Stiffness is probably the key clue. Well, maybe it's the fact that you don't detox and you don't have enough antioxidants in the body, and then stuff's building up and causing that oxidative stress in the connective tissue. Polyphenols. Oh, so important. Another really powerful group of antioxidants. We get a lot of them in our berries, the green tea, dark chocolates have a lot of these polyphenols. And obviously they help reduce the oxidative stress. And then avoid smoking and toxic exposure. So don't want to forget about that unbound iron. It can accumulate anywhere, and we don't want it accumulating in your connective tissue, or you really become stiff. And what happens, it will start solidifying and becoming really stiff and rigid. And a lot of times we think of these names that have been given to people like arthritis and other things, and it's like, what really is that? What's going on? Isn't that just you getting rust? Isn't that just being stiff and non-pliable? And so stuff starts building up in the tissues and in the joints, and your body's not getting rid of it. But smoking is directly linked to a lifestyle factor that degrades collagen in the body. So not only does smoking have all those other bad principles that we can think of with the lungs and stuff, but a lot of times people don't think about the fact that it is a degrader to collagen.
I think it just represents, it gives me the perfect snapshot when I think of a smoker, what oxidized stress can do to not just connective tissue, but every one of your trillion plus cells in the body. Yeah, but connective tissue is constantly exposed to these oxidative stressors from inflammation, toxins, aging, that unbound iron, and it's constantly breaking down that collagen if you don't have adequate antioxidant support, accelerating the degradation, the degeneration of the collagen. And that's why you see that smokers often have those deeper wrinkles, the thinner skin, right? Slower wound healing, their gums, as they get older, they begin to bleed even. But of course, their joints even begin to break down faster. So because the body is literally burning through its collagen reserves faster than it can repair them. So I think it's that when you say smoking, it's just like the perfect snapshot to, like, when you smoke, you're literally oxidizing your body, but that's actually what's happening at a slower rate when you don't smoke, but emphasizes the importance of just these critical antioxidants.
Well, I think you bring up another good point on, you could call it a clinical sign or just a sign for the average person on why they might want to be thinking about their connective tissue. And that is the aging process. You know, when we talk about the aging process, when you see someone who appears to be aging much faster than what their current age is, that could be a sign of unhealthy connective tissue. And, you know, something interesting I learned really early on when I was studying to be a naturopath was that the body is really intelligent. It has this innate wisdom. And sometimes when the body's smart enough, it will not break down tissues and cells like it's supposed to because it doesn't have the building blocks to build new healthy cells and tissues. And since the body doesn't have the building blocks, it's smart enough to know, I just can't break down these tissues and cells. They're too old, but I don't have the resources to build new ones. So that's not a good sign. And that means you're going to age faster than the average person, at least based on looks, because your cells are getting old. You know, all cells are supposed to be a life cycle, and they're supposed to die and be replaced by new healthy cells. But what happens with your body when it doesn't have the materials to build new healthy cells? You know, it's pretty smart. And the body is trying to make the best decision at any given moment for your health. And so the body has to go through these priorities and figure out what's the top priority and what's the best thing to do here. Do I even have the resources to do this? And if it doesn't, well, the body does nothing. It just sits. And now you have a tissue that maybe was supposed to be replaced 2 or 3 years ago, and it's still there. And that's not a good sign. You don't want old tissues and old cells. So now we're going to talk about what are some powerful antioxidant supplements with Azure. Well, we talked about that unbound iron. So IP6 Supreme is actually a powerful antioxidant because it gets rid of that unbound iron. I'm sure it does all kinds of other things for connective tissue because it just seems to have this affinity. This is a naturally occurring nutrient that used to be in a lot of our foods that just seems to know how to work with the body's innate wisdom, breaking down calcium deposits and getting the calcium back into the bones and doing all kinds of things like that. So I'd imagine it has a very unique role with connective tissue, even if we haven't figured that out yet. I have a feeling it does. I know with plants, almost all plants need IP6 for seed germination. And then some plants, the IP6 continues to be in the plant, and some plants, it goes away after germination. But very interesting. The fulvic humic mineral blend, those are minerals. So it's not a heavy dose of high dose minerals. This is a lower dose, but you're getting tons. I mean, probably over 72 different minerals and trace minerals in there directly from plants. So this is plant-based fulvic humic blend. And that's a great way to really get all of the minerals in one powder. Now you have the whole food C complex. We talked about that, the whole food multi, and then the glutathione plus. So a great product. If you think you have a glutathione problem, that might be something to add. But I would start with the 90 essential first and then add that in. Next, joint matrix support. So this was number 3, I believe. So when you're thinking of the joint matrix support, you have cartilage and synovial fluid. Okay. And that's kind of like the cushion in between your joints or in the joint, in between the bones that helps the joint move smoothly. And a lot of people know if your cartilage is dwindling down and the synovial fluid, people start having hip problems, knee problems. They go in and they say, oh, it's bone on bone. Well, that's the problem. Bone on bone usually means the cartilage is gone or the synovial fluid is gone or what they think is gone. Maybe it's just so torn up that there doesn't appear to be much there. And that allows that smooth, painless movement in the joint. And what does it require? Well, it requires building blocks. And that is a type of connective tissue. And that's what the connective tissue we were talking about, how the connective tissue is so important for your bones. Well, that's because it makes up things like this cartilage and synovial fluid, which is the cushion in between the bones. And so obviously you need that. You don't want your bones rubbing together. And key ingredients or nutrients for that is the glutathione or glucosamine and chondroitin. A lot of people have heard of that one. That's components of the extracellular matrix. Hyaluronic acid helps lubricate the joints. And then you have the sulfur. Usually it's MSM, or sulfur-rich foods like eggs and stuff are needed to help build and really protect the cartilage. And another mineral here that maybe we don't see too often, but is manganese. Manganese is really important for the connective tissue, especially as a cartilage enzyme. Well, it's not an enzyme, but it helps with the enzyme functions for the cartilage. So manganese is one of those things I see not too often, but it shows up on people's scans every once in a while. And usually if they have a connective tissue problem, manganese shows up. And that would be something that you would just find in the whole food multi. You would probably find it in the fulvic minerals. But these are very basic building blocks for the joint matrix support. Now we're going to show you some products from AzureWell, and we have something unique. And when you get to glucosamine and chondroitin, sometimes the MSM, it's often very hard to find products out there that don't use a lot of shellfish and other, you could say, animal sources that are just really not that healthy for you. We try to stay away from the unclean, what the Bible calls biblically unclean animals. They weren't really designed to be food. They were designed to be living trash cans. So they accumulate all these toxins in them. And I think shellfish is like one of the number one allergen foods out there. A lot of reactions to collagen, or not collagen, but to the shellfish. And interesting enough, a lot of formulas that are really good for your joints and really good for the gut oftentimes are made from shellfish. And it's like the worst thing you want to do if you have a gut issue is use something from shellfish. So we have the glucosamine sulfate with the AzureWell line. You have Ease and Comfort for joint tissue, the whole food multivitamin, and they don't actually have a Azure doesn't really have a AzureWell MSM powder, but Azure Standard does carry one. This one is called Raw Power, I think is the name of the company. So the great thing is Azure Standard does have some quality companies, even though it's not part of the Azure line, that AzureWell directly is responsible for making, but it is a clean source. So you can get a clean MSM from Azure Standard. And so all the products on the AzureWell line are going to be free from shellfish and other products like that.
You remind me of a fantastic point that I really want to make here. And, you know, I read a statistic, 1 in 7 Americans we have this epidemic going on right now, and it's going to continue to rise. And it's 1 in 7 Americans are living with osteoarthritis right now. Mm. That is a twofold increase, according to the World Health Organization, a twofold increase from the rest of the world. Wow. Why? Because of the standard American diet. Mm-hmm. And it's expected to double by 2040 if we don't do something about this. And, you know, a lot of this degeneration happens long before the pain is ever felt. And I think that's one oversight, because cartilage really has a very limited blood flow within it. And so we gotta be we gotta treat it preciously, right? Responsibly. And so because it has a very limited ability to then repair itself. So, you know, by the time someone feels the stiffness and the grinding, or that bone on bone discomfort, like my dad used to describe, you know, that joint matrix has been silently breaking down for years. And I remember, so it comes back, in my opinion, to the food, where the proper acronym here for us, as they labeled us, as SAD, right? The Standard American Diet. And when I was with David, and David will oftentimes talk about this, that the farmer is the guardian of our nation's health. And he's looking for food to be thy medicine again. And so when he's talked to me, and this isn't part of our standard operating procedure, this isn't an SOP within the farm, if you will, but David has spoken to me several times how he has compared the foods, or organic foods, the foods by independent regenerative farmers, when he takes a liquid from a produce and drops it onto a Brix meter. It's called a refractometer. It has a little flip there, and you take a drop of liquid from the produce, you put it on the refractometer, you look through it, and the meter either goes up or it goes down. And the meter is a representation of the dissolved solids and dissolved sugars within the food. That dissolved solids and dissolved sugars are the glyconutrients. And the glyconutrients that we're talking about, and what you just mentioned, is one of them, MSM. So the 8 healing sugars are, bear with me here, and you mentioned a couple of them here. The 8 healing sugars that we get from our food, that David is putting a magnifying glass on, making sure that Brix meter is in the upper range, comparatively speaking to your commercial store-bought food, are glucose, galactose, xylose, mannose, N-acetylglucosamine, N-acetylgalactosamine, oh my goodness, and N-acetylmuramic acid, which you get from colostrum.
Yeah.
So these are the 8 healing sugars that, oh boy, are so effective for the joints. But you get it through your food. So it's a little gem there that I remember when I was on the farm with David, and he was just going through, just talking about why he does what he does, and the importance of food and healing the body. That's one of the critical components right there. And you talk about those 8 healing sugars, that's the joints, that's the immune system, that's a lot of different things. So we cut out there. Are we back? I think we're back. But you mentioned, okay, I think we're back. You mentioned the MSM, and that's absolutely one of them.
Yeah, that also reminds me of the one of the difficulty things with connective tissue issues is usually by the time the person is complaining, there's a lot of damage done, and it's very hard once the damage is done to repair the connective tissue, because exactly what you were saying, that there's not a lot of blood flow there, and therefore it's really hard to get the nutrients in. So connective tissue is one of those things you really need to take care of and you don't want it to get to the point to where you have to do something major to try to correct the situation, because it is not a fast repair. It can take some time, and usually that is probably one of the number one factors on why so many people opt to have a joint replacement, just because by the time they need the joint replacement, it's going to take a lot of time and work to get that connective tissue repaired, just because of the anatomy of how connective tissue works, the lack of blood flow. It's really hard to get the nutrients in there to actually get to the repair. All right, so if we bring up the next slide here. Next one is healthy connective tissue requires hydration. So this was number 4, is hydration. So collagen is highly hydrophilic and holds several times its weight in water. So you need adequate water intake to keep the fascia supple and joint cushioned. Chronic dehydration really can drive the stiffness and reduce the tissue pliability. So we need water. Now with water, you also need electrolytes. Just pounding a bunch of water is not always the way to go. You want your electrolytes too to help with the balance. And it's the electrolytes, which are usually minerals, that helps make the water more absorbable. I already said collagen holds 3 times its weight. So the importance of hydration. Now, well, AzureWell does not actually have a supplement for hydration because it's water. And I guess you probably can buy water from Azure. But so what I put on here were the minerals or the type of supplements that Azure has that helps with giving your body minerals, and thus will help the electrolytes and the hydration when you're drinking your water. And Azure Standard has this King coconut water. Well, King coconut water is full of electrolytes, very powerful. And so I went ahead and threw that on there. So we're actually doing some Azure Standard marketing here today too, as well as AzureWell supplements. So a couple of cool products, and you can buy it all from the same portal. Well, that's what's really nice. Trace minerals, that's the trace replace. Those are the trace minerals that are very powerful, very strong. It's not something you drink. This is something you add a couple of drops to a big jug of water. Okay, and that's to get the electrolytes back into the water. And then you have the fulvic humic blend. That is your 72 plus minerals. It's usually a really, really small scoop. We're talking like 1/4 of a teaspoon. I think that much. Yeah, if it might be less than that. I think it's like 1/16 of a teaspoon. Honestly, I think it's like 1/16.
Yeah.
And it's you don't need very much at all. And you can mix that in water and drink it down. And then the adrenal food. Now, the adrenal food is more designed to give you the key food or nutrients for the adrenal glands, but those happen to be some of your main electrolytes. It has whole food C in it. It has the sodium, and it has potassium. So here are some good ways to get minerals in your body to help with the hydration. Number 5, I think we're on 5, is movement and loading. All right, this is something that's important. Most people in the health world, as far as physical fitness world, kind of knows this, that there's this principle of movement and loading where you're applying a little bit of resistance, and resistance is not only good for building muscle, but you need resistance and movement to keep your bones healthy, and you need it to keep your connective tissue healthy. And so we're not talking like going out and being strongman, Mr. Universe strongman, where you're going to pick up like some 10,000 pound boulder and try to throw it up on some pillar or something. We're not talking about that. We're just normal movement and then loading exercises. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but tendons and ligaments don't receive good blood supply. See, we were going to get to that eventually. So they rely on the mechanical loading to stimulate repair and collagen remodeling. So progressive strength training is most effective stimulus. Timing matters. Consuming about 15 to 20 grams of collagen with vitamin C, whole food C, about 30 to 60 minutes before exercise has shown to boost the collagen synthesis in the tendons. So something to think about. So you can kind of look up progressive strength training and find exercises that might work for you. You just want to be smart. You don't want to overdo it. So you start slow and you slowly work up. Now I'm trying to think, what did I put for the movement and loading support supplements? I was like, did I put something for there? I think it's basically just the basics again. Your pure collagen, your whole food C. These are things you can take, like we just said before, maybe doing a strengthening exercise. You have the glucosamine sulfate and you have the ease and comfort. That might be something you need to take after you do your exercising. Maybe you want to do it before too. It just depends. That last one is kind of more for if you're actually having dis-ease and pain. However, it is whole food, so it's not like it's going to cause any damage. Anyone really can use it. It's just whether or not you really need it. Next, this is number 6. Number 6 is anti-inflammatory lifestyle. So obviously, we know inflammation is a killer. We don't want tons of inflammation in the body. Chronic low-grade inflammation directly degrades connective tissue. What's one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories? Omega-3s, especially from your fish oils. So you can guarantee we're going to talk about Alaskan cod liver oil here in a minute, but you want those good essential fatty acids, the EPAs, the DHAs, and all the other key nutrients that come in with the fish oil. They're really great as anti-inflammatories, and they also help lubricate. Very powerful for a lot of systems in the body, gut, brain. Limit the ultra-processed foods. So your fake sugars and your fake oils, that's a big topic today. These seed oils, they're really rancid. They're ultra-processed. It's just pure inflammation and oxidative stress when you're putting those type of things in the body. And that's going to start affecting all tissues in the body. And of course, if it starts affecting the connective tissue, then you're going to start having the connective tissue problems. The excessive sugar promotes AGEs, which then stiffen collagen. So you don't want the excessive sugar. And most of the sugar we're talking about is this really fake synthetic sugars that are not naturally occurring in food. And, I hate to think how much sugar the average American consumes now. It's ridiculous. But if you're going to fast food or restaurants, box or can packaged foods, all these industries love to pack sugar into their products to make them more addictive, to make them better tasting. And we really don't want that. So you really want to get back to a whole food diet of what actually comes out of the earth with a natural, healthy, the 8 healthy sugars that you're supposed to be getting, not all this highly inflammatory, false, fake sugar. Turmeric and curcumin is a great anti-inflammatory support. And of course, magnesium. Magnesium helps reduce inflammation. And magnesium is also responsible. It's a key mineral that's used for making a lot of, you could say, your structural support in the body. Bones, muscles, connective tissue. Magnesium's involved with all of them. So here's your AzureWell anti-inflammatory support supplements. The Alaskan cod liver oil, of course, very powerful. You have the IP6 because of the inflammatory response of unbound iron. So to get that out. And then I listed here 3 products, or actually 4 products. 1 more liver, 1 more gallbladder oriented to help with the liver gallbladder system because of the toxicity. The liver is probably your key detoxing organ in the body, filtering organ, and it has to filter out all kinds of stuff. And when the liver becomes overworked, which is very easy in our society, inflammation is going to start building up because you're going to have an overload of toxins in the body, and toxins are going to lead to inflammation. So the idea of supporting the liver and the gallbladder with nutrients, to keeping that function healthy, not to mention that the liver has over 500 functions in the body that we've mapped. There's probably even more. And then when you get into more of the energy perspective of the body, in our system, it would be a little bit different. In acupuncture, they would call this the wood element or liver gallbladder path meridians. In the Alpha body system, we call it third cycle. And third cycle has a lot to do with connective tissue directly. So we see energetically that the liver is directly related to your connective tissue. It's connected to your the fat processes of the body and the eyes. So all these processes kind of have the same type of energy in the body. So the nutritional support for those systems of the body will then support the connective tissue.
You know, I just have to say, oftentimes some people can feel just a little bit overwhelmed in what do I do first? Where do I go first? When you're wanting to, and oftentimes your body is, you're full of inflammation, and you want to really support and modulate a proper inflammatory response. One of the best ways you can do that is with a foundational component, and you mentioned it here, Dr. Monzo, the omega-3 from the omega-3s of EPA and DHA. And this is, we're specifically speaking about the cod liver oil here. And not all cod liver oils, not all fish oils were created equal. We need to understand that first. And it's so important when you're seeking out a cod liver oil out there that you get it in the triglyceride form that's never been molecularly distilled. When in a manufacturing process, when you expose these precious compounds of DHA and EPA and vitamin A and vitamin D, all naturally, vitamin A, naturally occurring as retinol in the cod liver oil, when you expose it to high heat, remember, you are hydrogenating the oil, fractionating the oil. It completely dissolves this matrix. And there's a component that we identify with that I want everybody to look at the back of their labels of their fish oil, specifically the cod liver oil. We identify with something called pro-resolving mediators, PRMs. These pro-resolving mediators, like the resolvins and the protectins and the resins, they are the light switch in promoting a healthy inflammatory response in the body, in supporting the body's natural clearance in cleaving mechanistically some of these inflammatory compounds, right? So these are vital, and it's not just for your knees and for your joints to make you feel better. This is literally for every one of your trillion plus cells in your body. So if there's one that you need to get on, if there's one that you need to do, or if you're confused where to start, start here. Start here with the Alaskan cod liver oil. We have it in capsules, we have it in liquids, so you can saturate the body with it at first, right? And get it to those necessary levels, and then start taking the capsules afterwards. But you can't take too much of this stuff. And so I'm adamant about this being a foundational element, especially when we're talking about promoting a healthy inflammatory response in the body. You can use all the fancy tricks you want, but you're swimming against the current unless you have this in place.
Yeah, it's so important. And unfortunately, since there a large majority of companies do not know how to make the fish oils correctly, supplements, you see a huge movement of people saying, don't do any fish oil. And it's like, well, that's not good advice either.
Oof.
Because you really, it's a foundational, nourishing tradition nutrient is cod liver oil. And so it's not so much don't ever do it, but find who's doing it right.
Oh, that's a good.
And one other thing I was going to mention on that last slide was when we were looking at the liver gallbladder formulas, the extended liver extended, or I think it's liver support extended. There's a capsule form and then there's a liquid form. Yeah, yes, the formulas are slightly different. And then you have the bile gallbladder action support, and then there's a liquid version. Now, one of the key ingredients in, I don't know if it's in all 4 products, but it's definitely in 2 or 3 out of the 4, is the turmeric. Turmeric is in a lot of these products. And of course, you're going to have milk thistle and things like that for the liver, but you're going to get the antioxidant support with the turmeric in some of those products. So that was another reason why those were listed there. So when you refer back to the slide and it's saying turmeric, well, how are you getting turmeric? Well, it's in there. And then, of course, you're going to get a lot of magnesium support in the IP6.
Karina Colte, Zoom.
So next, I think this is number 7. Number 7 is sleep and hormones. Okay, so tissue repair happens predominantly during sleep. This is true for all tissues of the body, all repair of the body. A lot of the repair occurs at sleep, driven by the growth hormone, pulse, and deep sleep. So that means we need proper sleep, 7 to 9 hours. Estrogen maintains elastin and collagen. Cortisol, at least excessive cortisol, starts to break down collagen. So we want to control our stress and make sure we're getting plenty of sleep. And I don't know, HR. There's you know how crazy social media can be. I keep seeing a new, I guess it's a new conspiracy theory or a truther fad floating around the internet that is now saying we don't really need 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. That's a lie. And we're actually supposed to kind of wake up during the middle of the night and get some work done and then go back to sleep. And I'm like, I don't know who these people are make up these things, but that's not a conspiracy theory you want to track down, folks. That will land you into a lot of trouble. All you have to do is think about how nature works and just think back several hundred years before we had electricity. You weren't doing anything in the middle of the night. You were not getting up and working. There was no light to see. So this idea that you don't really need 7 or 8 hours of sleep, that's a bad idea. You absolutely need to sleep.
I think you said enough. It's hard to even acknowledge that.
That you can't even believe someone. I was like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "That's not even worth going down that rabbit hole." That's so. What can you do for sleep? Well, AzureWell has a couple products that might help you. If you have a racing mind, and you just can't turn off the mind, and that's why you can't sleep. We got racing mind relief with Mag M. Estrogen balance for both men and women. We have the men's and women's estrogen balance. Now, this is not giving you estrogen, folks. We don't really give you any hormones when it comes to the AzureWell line. These are supplements that help balance estrogen in the body, and it helps balance out a lot of what I call the junk estrogens, all these pseudo estrogens that we have in the environment with the DIM product that's in here. And so both men and women have a problem with this. If you have a lot of the junk estrogen or too much estrogen, it can greatly affect the other hormones for men and for women. So this is a good way to get those with the estrogen in balance. And then we have the adrenaline adaptogen. So as it sounds, that's an adaptogen formula, which are usually a group of herbs that helps the body to adapt and change. So they don't force the body in one direction or the other. They allow the body to adapt and change. So if something is low, it brings it up. And if something's too high, it helps bring it down. So it just helps balance out the hormones. And of course, obviously, it plays a major role on the adrenal glands, and which deals a lot with your cortisol and your stress hormones. Last but not least, we have nutrition for life, which we kind of have talked about this whole time in some ways or not, but a few things we haven't mentioned. Your vitamin D and vitamin A, if we can call it vitamin D. I prefer to call it hormone D and vitamin A because they're so important. That means being out in the sun and getting some good sun on your skin and in your eyes. So important to be getting that sunlight. The sunlight is what makes your hormone D and stimulates the retinol, which is a vitamin A in the body. So tendon gene expression has a lot to do with the A and the D. And I have my own theories. Everyone usually does. I think the retinol is way more important than D. I think D gets all of the focus, but it's really hard to find D in the food supply. It's almost non-existent. You almost always have a lot more retinol and vitamin A. So you have to wonder why God didn't put more D in the food supply. And maybe that's because we're supposed to get it from being in the sun. And when you look at a lot of the medical studies, unfortunately, the health scientific studies, there's not, I don't know if I know of any scientific study that has actually done a causal study on D. In other words, where you isolate absolutely everything else and you're only looking at the D. So I think a lot of the overexposure in the natural health world about D is really just conclusions based on association. Maybe it's D, maybe it's not. So in other words, a lot of the studies, they will take a group of people, two groups of people, and one group of people are really healthy and one group is not healthy. And the group that's healthy have higher D levels. And they go, oh, well, see, there you go. D's the main nutrient for your immune system. Well, what about all the other nutrients? Did you do a full panel on all the nutrients in both groups of people? Did you see what the diet was like in both groups of people? Did you look at all these other key nutrients in both groups of people? Usually the answer is no. So a lot of times we have to be careful with scientific research because a lot of times it's this association, not an actual causal study. So I don't know how you really isolate the retinol from the D response because it's activated the same way. So I really wonder how much the retinol is responsible for what we think D does. That's just my 2 cents. I'll leave it there. But then you need calcium, magnesium, copper, zinc. Mn is manganese. S for selenium. You need all these powerful minerals. And you don't just need them for the ligaments and the tendons and the connective tissue, but you need the exact same things for your bone and for muscles. So basically everything that holds you together needs those nutrients. So you can imagine we have up here the 90 essential nutrients, which is the cod liver oil, the whole food multi, the IP6 Supreme, and the Fovic Humic Blend. Those 4 products will give you your 90 essential nutrients. The whole food is mostly your vitamins and antioxidants. The IP6 gives you a little bit higher dose of your calcium, magnesium, phosphorus. The Fovic is your minerals, and then the Alaskan cod liver oil is going to be your omega oils. And then after you're doing your 90 essential, throw in some collagen, and you have connective tissue support. So if you don't know where to start, this would be your bottom line place to start. The 90 essential and a little bit of collagen.
Thank you, Dr. Monzo. I think as we close this conversation, the biggest takeaway that I got from all of this is that the healthy connective tissue is not just built, number one, overnight, right? And it's number two, it's not supported just by one supplement alone. It is the result of daily choices, how we nourish the body, how we move, how we manage this inflammation, because there are toxins out there, stressors that we're constantly exposed to. There's oxidative stress that's naturally occurring. How are we supporting that? How are we providing the raw materials the body needs to repair and rebuild and maintain its health? The tendons, the ligaments, the fascia, the cartilage, the connective tissue within the joints, these are all part of a deeper terrain that determines the strength of our chassis here, right? Our mobility, our resilience, and how long this for me 1975 Corvette is going to last. Its longevity. And when we protect this foundation that has been given to us, we're not just supporting the joints, but we're preserving the quality of our life in so many different ways for years to come. So, Dr. Monzo, again, thank you for sharing your wisdom and helping us better understand how to nourish us and hold ourselves together, right? And promote a wellness that is not managing but thriving.
Yes.
Again, thank you to everybody for listening. Join us here with AzureWell for a monthly podcast. Until next time, stay well, stay grounded, and keep building that health from the inside out. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.